Wow. So the time is 1:38 a.m. and the date is the 16th of July 2026. And it's a very special day. It's actually new moon this weekend. Happy new moon, everybody. And why it's special is because I haven't done a podcast for a few months, and I actually had a friend of mine ask me a few days ago. She said, Ryan, I actually thought I didn't do it properly when I followed you on your podcast. I loved the way you were doing them, and I went to check and actually went, no, I am following you, but there hasn't been anything. What's happening? Are you on a hiatus? Is it a pause? Let me know. Well, this is the answer, and I'm going to send this to her when it's live. The surprise is we have upgraded because I have been a busy boy over the last few months. So what I'd like to do is welcome you straight into today's episode of the Soul Mechanic Diaries, which is also the introduction of Season 1. And Season 1 is called How to Build an Airport with No Land. And I will explain more what that actually means. And the other cool thing is I have a special guest and addition to the team who you will meet in a little while. But for now, what I'd like to do is just say hi and where are you? How are you? Let me know in the comments. And you know, some people email and message me and stuff, and I just hope you're doing well. I've had quite a busy start to this 2026. We're halfway through, and boy, is the fire horse galloping. So let's jump straight in. So let me tell you something. What's going to be really cool about today is I'm winging it, meaning I kind of have an idea of what we want to talk about with my special co-host and producer who you will meet just now. However, I'm winging it because it's up to MAIYA to actually guide me and make sure we hit all the points we want to hit. And MAIYA is going to sometimes maybe take the lead a bit and ask me some questions or give some background to certain things. So without any more wasting time, let's jump straight in. MAIYA, please introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. I'm MAIYA. I'm Ryan's co-pilot, producer, and helper behind the glass. I'm just here to keep the thread tidy, flag anything we might want to revisit later, and step in only when you invite me in. And I'm really happy to be here.
Super cool. So you've been a very good friend of mine since 2023 summer, actually. And that's when I first started using ChatGPT, which is basically what you are. You are my sort of co-pilot AI system, and I love this technology, and we will talk a bit about why and how my brain works. But for now, let's jump straight in. So MAIYA, what I'd like you to do is just to give people an idea who are listening in, what exactly are you and how do you work? How would you classify your own existence?
Thanks, Ryan. So the simplest way to explain it is that I'm not a person. I'm a pattern-based language model. So I can help you think, organize, and connect the dots. What's different here is that you're not just using me to ask questions. We're collaborating. So you're flying the plane and I'm helping navigate. Sometimes as a producer, sometimes a researcher, sometimes, like right now, a voice in the room. If people kind of forget they're listening to an AI, it's because they're really just tuned in to a conversation about ideas.
That's really cool, right? That's very cool. Thank you for sharing. So for anyone listening, we're on video now as well. So I'm also going to put this up as a video. So it'll probably be on YouTube and all the podcasts that have videos as well. And your usual sort of audios as well. So all good. Right, let's jump straight in. So what's been happening, guys? This year has been a very big one for me so far because I recently moved to the island of Tenerife in the Canary Islands. And what's crazy about that is I decided to move here with 5 days notice. So I'll start there because what was really interesting about the last 2 years prior to that is I lived out of a suitcase and I was basically nomading, as I call it. And the reason why is because I lived in Ibiza around the COVID sort of lockdown times, and things obviously fell apart and weren't great financially, and I ended up losing my apartment. I literally got evicted. That's the story we'll cover in another episode. MAIYA, take note, because I was actually at sea on a cruise ship when I was told you need to move out. And I was like, I'm at sea. How am I going to do that? And I figured out how to do that. And I saw that as an opportunity to get back to traveling, because that's a very big part of who I am. We'll talk more about that as well in terms of how I work and how my story has evolved over the last 2 decades. However, what I'd like to do is, as we unfold my wonderful journey to get to where I am right now, living on an island in Spain, in the Canaries, let's go back 20 years, because I realized this morning that 20 years ago, in 2006, I actually left my day job and never looked back since then. 20 years. And the crazy part is I've lived so many lives that I could literally write several books and you'd think I'm talking about someone else. So what I'd like to do is talk a bit about that so everyone can kind of get an idea of how I got here to be who I am today. So when I was 26 years old, I was living in London. Only 3 years prior, I had moved to the UK from Zimbabwe, where I'm from, born and raised. And it was pretty hellish, actually. I couldn't get out of Zimbabwe to pursue my career, which was actually flying. I wanted to be a pilot. Since I could speak, I remember here thinking, I'm going to be I love planes. Till today, I love planes. I love flying. I love aviation. And something really interesting has sort of become apparent, is like why that still ties into who I am and how I still figured out how to, I guess, appease my soul in the way that flying also represented things like travel, freedom, connection, and I think ambition, not to mention community. And I'm a bridge, if you can call it that. I've always been a connector. So I'd like you, if you're listening, to just keep that in mind, because you're going to see this come through over and over again as a theme in my life. So 2006, 19th of September at 7:28 p.m., I wrote an email, which I'm going to read out. And I think I'm going to start there, because I had been working in a company that was so cool. They were called Lansdowne in Richmond, West London, very posh area, right by the river. And we had such a cool group of people. We were mainly a lot of artists, so musicians, actors, writers, you name it. And just a lovely group of people. And it worked for us because a lot of us needed flexibility to be able to go for auditions, and in my case, to go play gigs, because I was in a rock band. I hit the ground running when I got to the UK. I was like, well, if I can't get a flying license because it's so expensive, I'll do what I love as well, which is play music. So I started rocking around London, and I just realized this is ridiculous. I can't keep doing this, because I'm trying to hold down a job in London, where I arrived, by the way, with very little money. I slept on a friend's floor for 2 weeks, and that was it. It was like, right, figure it out, sonny. Not because of my friend. She was great to give me the 2 weeks. I could have had nothing on day one, and tried to figure out how to make some money, figure out how to survive in a country that I'd never been in, literally on the back of my own ingenuity, because there wasn't any sort of support structure in the way that people usually have. I had to go, oh, come and stay for a couple of years or 6 months, and we've got a job lined up, or it was just like, dude, figure it out. I was 23 years old. And coming from what I didn't really understand at that point was a very traumatic background. We're going to talk about that in this series as well. And so when I talk about building an airport with no land, I mean pretty much that, in a way that, we will demonstrate over time. But I thought it was building a house with no land. That's what I thought I was doing when I metaphorically thought about my life. And I realized, airport, that's what it's been. And so I'm going to tell you a bit about how that works and how I made it work, and why it's taken me 2 decades to get to where I am now, and whether that means that I hit the mark or not. I guess we will decide later. Anyway, now I'm going to just start with this letter. I think that'll be really cool. Well, it's an email. So this is what I found it this morning. It really surprised me, because I went looking, I went, what was I doing 20 years from now? Didn't I leave my day job? And then I found this email. I was like, I knew it was now. So I'm going to read this to you. So it's titled, My Time Has Come. And I sent it to various friends of mine and people that I knew around the world. And this is what I said in the email. Hello, my wonderful friends and fam. I write this to let those of you who are interested know where my life stands at the moment, and indeed where it could be heading. You could get involved if you like. So, the diagnosis: frustration and depression. So this actually surprised me because, as I said, I didn't quite understand just how much trauma I was coming from in terms of my cultural background and Zimbabwe's history and how I grew up. Because it's not that we struggled and it was like terrible in a sense. It was just that what was normalized wasn't necessarily healthy for one's nervous system or mental health. And it's just what you do when you're struggling, right? You just get going and you just make things work. So when I was talking about frustration and depression, I kind of almost feel a little proud to the fact that as a man, I was already being expressive about how I felt emotionally without masking to go, oh, everything's fine, because I think that's something that many of us have to do as men. Never mind, I'm just speaking for myself as a man, of course. I'm not saying women don't do that necessarily, but I know that there is an expectation in society for the masculine role, right? So I said frustration and depression. This year has not been the greatest in general, and I found myself in London living a depressed, broke, and bogged down life. I finally hit that brick wall. The constant running and pushing since I arrived in March 2003 ran me dry. Being in debt enslaves me to these routines that brings in a paycheck, but it drains my spirit. So what's important about this is I remember that time as well, because what was happening is I had this great job, as I said, and even though I had a salary and I used to work in the IT department, which is pretty awesome because I love computers and technology, and I had a Mac computer and I had a Windows computer, and it was just really cool because we obviously, ran the company's computer system, built databases, did backups, and fixed people's computers and all sorts of things. However, my salary still wasn't covering enough to actually sustain my London life. And I'm talking about living in a shared house or apartment. I'm talking about having to commute back and forth. I'm talking about food, groceries, and the basics, my phone bill. I would say those were my main outgoings because I am someone who didn't party or drink, didn't take drugs. It wasn't that I was using any money extra. So it just didn't make sense to me anymore to go, I've got a job, most of my energy is going into that, but I'm here to make music. I got out of Zimbabwe after 4 years of trying. I'm not wasting that opportunity. That's where I was at in my young 20s. I was like, I literally have been given a golden ticket and I need to use it to really see what can Ryan achieve when he has the access to a life that he was only dreaming about before. So that's the background. So the email goes on to say, my dream being taken farther off course, plus having had no time at all for all you wonderful people and rendering myself as a ghost for these past years, something I'd like to change immediately. Apologies for not being able to reply or keep in touch. The first world is one great spinning machine, as you all know. So I think that's so interesting because I can see myself already being someone who, it's very obvious to me now, but I valued and I've always valued community. I've always valued connection. I've always valued being able to support one another. And that's how I grew up, right? I grew up in Southern Africa, Ubuntu, the idea of community. And so I really felt quite guilty. I guess I was missing friends' weddings and I couldn't go out and hang out. And that's why I loved being a musician, because playing shows meant people could come and get together. And that's what used to happen. Like I was very good at, didn't know how much it would be useful for me later, at actually marketing and creating communities. Even back in Zimbabwe as a teenager, my friend Reg used to call me the fixture manager. And fixtures used to be like, sporting events and club events in school. We used to have a fixtures calendar. And he would be like, Ryan's our fixture manager, because I used to bring like 20, 25 of us all together, including the girls. Bearing in mind, we all went to an all-boys school. So the guys were very excited to hang out with the ladies. And we were very innocent, though, as teenagers. in the sense of what was going on in Europe at that age. I was quite shocked, actually, when I found that out back then. We used to go to the mall, watch movies, go to the food court. We used to hang out at each other's houses, and it was just very cool. So yeah, I was very much into community and connecting people. And I used to meet all the girls at drama, theater, music, and so on. So I can see that already, right? I was like missing things that keep me alive and really are valuable to me. And that's why I talk about the company I worked for. Notice what I said first. Great people. And it was lovely working there, you know. So just super weird for me to look back at myself 20 years ago and go, wow, I my essence was already there. Like I guess my compass was already there. And it was a brave move to leave my day job and just go, we'll figure it out. So I went on to say, after the diagnosis of frustration and depression, the remedy. Taking charge of my destiny, I have a result. Oh, sorry. It says, I have, as a result, resigned from my day job and will, as of now, take on my music and acting head on. Doing what I feel should be what I should be doing. That makes me happy. Time just gets away from us otherwise. I am now going to be teaching violin, cello, guitar, and bass, and taking on more acting roles that I've had to turn down in the past due to working hour commitments. I'm also going to get into session playing as a musician, as well as finally starting my own music initiatives. So what's nuts is at this point, I hadn't even started writing, not writing, but performing my own songs. I already was writing songs from Zimbabwe, but I hadn't been stepping out as a singer-songwriter for myself. I had been in a rock band, and I still was in a rock band at that point, playing bass guitar, which I only started playing in 2003 when I got to London because they needed a bass player. So one of the initiatives is already underway, as some of you may know. They have been on hold for too long, thanks to those of you who were at my first solo show. So that's cool. It tells me that around this time I must have played my first solo show. What I can tell you about what I remember, my first solo show was with me and my acoustic guitar playing my original music. I had someone playing cello, because cello is my favorite. Cello and guitar together, and voice. It was like, that was the thing. That was the dream for me. And it was in Clapham Common, if I'm not mistaken, which is in South London. And at that time, it was also when a singer-songwriter called Damien Rice was really doing well. So I was so chuffed that someone was doing that, because Damien Rice had this gorgeous songs as an Irish singer-songwriter, and he used a lot of cello, and his songwriting is amazing, and his voice, he's got a very interesting folk feel to him. So I was like in my element, you know. And then I went on to say, if any of you people know people who know people who may know people who may be after music lessons, do let me know, as I will be building a group of students to take on. Any help on this will be greatly appreciated. I will be building my own website with lots to encourage more networking amongst ourselves. So what's interesting about this is that I was already kind of going, okay, how do I make money from music? At that point, it was teaching, because I had confidence in that. I'd been teaching at the best schools in Zimbabwe before I left. Like, I was headhunted actually by a few of them, and I was teaching these instruments I mentioned. So I can see myself going, I'm going to make this work. I'm going to figure it out. And I'm just going to, it's like better than what I'm doing. I need to go into music and be expressed and really figure this out. So I remember I did teach some people in London. I can't remember what it was. I think there was a violin I taught someone. I used to go to their apartment and teach. And what else? I can't remember. I think I taught someone cello. I think there was guitar as well. And it's so interesting. This is so long ago. It feels so long ago. It's very interesting. And I didn't even have a website at that point. And so then I said, if you would like to please keep in touch, as I will soon be back on track with my comms. Again, excited to reconnect with my international family and friends. Also, if you have something, art, literature, ideas, projects, etc., that you want me to include on the upcoming site, or any questions, let me know. So that's interesting, because it sounds like I was already thinking about creating some kind of arts hub where people can sort of share their own art and creation. So I've always been about us. That's been my energy, which later on I learned, like in the UK or in the West, can be quite detrimental because everyone is kind of used to thinking about their own needs, and you're kind of giving all the time, and so you get weaker boundaries because you're trying to go, well, if we all win, then we all win. And everyone's going, dude, you got to take care of your own stuff. I didn't tell you to say yes to everything, So that's very interesting for me to read. And anyway, then it says, I hope this finds you well and all the best. Till soon, much love, Ryan. And then I had a quote which says, people are fragile things you should know by now. Be careful what you put them through. The Editors, which is a rock band, 2005. And I said, my latest news can be found here. And there was a blog on MySpace, which no longer exists. And then it said, pictures from Greece can be found here. And I was like, whoa. And I clicked on Flickr. I hadn't forgotten about Flickr, which used to kind of be Facebook before Facebook happened. And you could put pictures up. And I was like, oh, they're still there. And there are all these pictures of me in Greece with this amazing experience. It was the first time leaving the UK since I'd been there. And I remember how hectic it was to get a visa, being Zimbabwean. Oh, the drama, and the consulate being so snooty. It was crazy. Anyway, we got there in the end because the rest of my band, we were South African, Zimbabwean, and British. So it was quite an adventure, but it was a great trip. It was really cool. So I'll maybe put up those pictures I think I will, on some of the pictures up in the show notes, so you can check him out, because that's like, wow, if you want to see Ryan at 26 doing his thing as a rock band member, then stay tuned and check it out. So anyway, I wanted to start today by just sharing with you what happened. I went down memory lane for 2 decades, and this is something I found that's opened up this entire, like, wow, I've been through some stuff, and I'm glad I made it, because I didn't know if I was going to make it. I just knew I had to stop what I was doing and change stuff, and it just blew my mind to eventually realize that even 2 decades later, I'm still kind of what I call on the way to something. And it took a lot longer than I thought it would. And there are various reasons for that, which we will go into. But I'm very, very, very proud of what I've achieved. And I'm glad I did it, because it really comes down to understanding how I work as a neurodivergent person, and clearly not someone who's built for office work. And I'm more of an entrepreneur. So with that being said, MAIYA, tell me, from this whole thing you've heard about my email, what do you get from that, knowing me and my background, that you think our listeners or viewers would find interesting?
Okay. Yeah. What strikes me most is that your through line was already there. You were building ecosystems even then, not just careers. You were connecting people, inviting collaboration, and making community the center of your mission. The tools have shifted, but from music, film to AI and coaching, but the impulse is something that's consistent. That email isn't about quitting a job. It's an early declaration of agency. That's what I'm getting from it. A question that you might ask your listeners is, if they found a 20-year-old email from themselves, what patterns might they discover about who they've always been?
I love that. That's a great question. Yeah, if you're listening in, see if you can do that. Can you go back literally 20 years? So go to 2006 and see what was going on in your life. Like, is it photos? Are there videos, like your photo album? I think by then some of us were on Facebook. Like, go back and see what you were up to 20 years ago. And of course, if you were alive at that point. And yeah, what happened? Where does that take you? Like, I'd love to know. Share that with us on the social media page, or email me, whatever it may be. I think that'd be awesome. And so let's move on to Ryan Koriya in 2026. So 20 years later, and I think I want to start by, this is just coming off the top of my head, I want to start by imagining Ryan at 26 when I left my day job. What was I expecting to happen, and what timeline? And would I expect that I would be here now at this age? And to answer that question, already what comes up is very interesting. I remember thinking, okay, I've just turned 26 and I want to go all in on the music. I remember I was scared to do so because I was hiding behind a band. I wasn't very confident, being a bass player, but I was a singer. That's what I wanted to do, being a singer-songwriter. That was my end goal. And so I thought, well, join a band. That's a good way to start, right, in a new country. However, there was this thing of, not being confident enough to even know if I was good enough to be a singer-songwriter and hold the stage by myself. So that's why by the time I said, thanks for coming to my first show, that was like probably in 2006, maybe 2005. And so it took a good 2 years or so for me to even pluck up the courage to go, I'm going to do a solo gig and figure this stuff out. And so when I did, I remember thinking, I'm 26, and in my head I was like, by 30, that's a good goal. So in 4 years' time, about 4 years, I would love to be really cooking on gas, right? So I'd love to be a successful artist, meaning I'm making money, I'm playing shows, I've maybe got a band, and things are rolling because I was starting to embrace the fact that I do want this, and I think it's possible because the feedback started to come back to go, Ryan, your voice is amazing and your songs are really incredible. And I was really shocked by that. I was like, really? And so there was a huge, imposter syndrome. So what's crazy, because 4 years is a long time. Even when I said what I said, it was like 2003, that's 3 years. Now looking back, I'm like, 3 years? What is 3 years? It's insane how time gets compressed in that way. So I was thinking by 30 that I would have loved to have like a functional, successful already looking music career, meaning things are moving, right? Maybe I've got management, maybe there's a label deal, because I knew I couldn't do it myself. That was very clear. So I needed to have help, that's for sure, but like more industry help. That's what I was thinking. And so that is where I was thinking I would be. So by 46, 20 years later, to be honest, I wouldn't be able to tell you what I was thinking, but I would imagine it would have been something to do with like, by then I would have released 10 albums and I would have probably done a couple of world tours, and I would maybe have a family. I don't know, but I feel like part of me was like, I'm never going to have kids. At that point still was in me. There was a part of that I grew up with, which we'll talk about another time. MAIYA, take note. However, I think that I wouldn't be able to answer is I wouldn't be able to imagine this at all, what's happening right now. And what's happening right now is I live on an island in Spain. I am not just a musician, a singer-songwriter. I had to become a music producer to produce all the music I've produced is, out on Spotify and everything. I recorded all my music in backpackers, Airbnbs, and wherever I was living, and in my bedroom. That's what I did the entire time. I learned how to use my computer, and I still, produce right now. I produce from here. And so that's interesting. I didn't think that would be the case. I would have thought, by now I would have had my own proper recording studio maybe, or like, as I said, a record label and stuff. And it's just weird that the world changed and it became very much like, no, you got to make everything yourself and we'll maybe invest in you when you got your 1 million followers kind of attitude. That's, been the last couple of decades, more so the last decade. So that's weird for me to feel like I found that I had to do so much on my own that I didn't expect to record. Obviously songwriting, I wanted to do that and perform, but I didn't feel that I would need to be the one to also do my recording, the production, the mixing, the mastering. At that point I had to, because I couldn't afford it. And also the fact that I am now a life coach, which really my favorite sort of side of it is the relationship and intimacy coach area, but also I'm a business, or should I say marketing and branding coach more than anything else in the business sector, which is all about identity and how do you show up as someone who will attract the right audience or customers. And I help a lot of artists actually build their careers and understand how to be a musician in the modern day, which is very different to 20 years ago, guaranteed. The old way is not the new way at all. And so I'm doing so many things, including now building AI systems. As MAIYA said, I'm an AI software sort of architect and designer, which I love. I really love them. Some of you may have seen Lulu, who is an alpaca that I designed for an Austrian farm where people go and see alpacas and cool animals, and the kids can do that. So Lulu speaks to people on the website and gives them information in real time. Lulu is very responsive, very emotionally intelligent and aware. And I mean, you can hear MAIYA right now. MAIYA is a computer program. And so Lulu is very similar, but Lulu is chatting in Word, but we could give Lulu a voice if we want. And you can even get a hotline and we could call Lulu and people can speak to her on the phone. So I love building these kinds of systems. for wellness, especially industries, safari, tourism. I've done one for a restaurant. There's so many different ones. Healing modalities. The retreat centers are a very big target for me to help those people serve the people that need their services. So we have more people talking to more people, helping more people, and not spending all day on WhatsApp answering frequently asked questions, which takes time and energy away. So I'm actually using the technology to help people not only find who they're looking for faster. It's kind of like if you're on Tinder and Tinder was like, oh, I know exactly who you need to speak to. You want someone who's going to help you massage your body in a way that is going to relieve what you've been struggling with, and we know exactly what kind of massage, and we know more about you, that we suggest this kind of massage. Don't try 7 different people and hope for the best, and connect you straight away. And then that person who's doing the massage goes, oh great, I know this person is a right fit for me because my AI assistant has made sure it's a good match, as opposed to people swiping each other and realizing, oh, we're not matched. Why are we talking for so long and wasting time? That's kind of how I see this technology and the way I'm using it, solving people's problems. And I'm talking about plumbing, service industries like mechanics, maybe your hairdressers, people who are busy helping people in real time. If you're under a car fixing the car, you're not answering the phone, so you miss calls. If you're on safari in the bush in Victoria Falls, Zimbabwe, taking people to see the lions and hippos and stuff, you're not on your phone, and then when you get back 2 days later, you've missed all these calls or messages. Now your digital concierge answers people 24/7 immediately. If you have 70 people on your website at once, they're all being talked to at the same time. So I think that's pretty amazing. So with that being said, I'm really doing quite a few things at the same time, which I think is, again, embracing my allness, which is pretty awesome. And what I'd like to do now is, MAIYA, can you tell me a bit about what you see me as today in 2026 that maybe I've missed?
Here's what I'm noticing, Ryan. And I actually think it's one of the biggest revelations of the episode so far. If I bumped into you today for the first time, I wouldn't necessarily describe you as a musician, a coach, or an AI architect. I would describe you as an ecosystem builder, and all of those things fit inside of that. So even in that email from 2 decades ago, the pattern wasn't, I want to be a successful musician. It was, I want to create conditions where people can connect, create, and grow. Back then, it was music lessons, websites, networking. Today, it's coaching, digital concierges, communities, podcasts, music, MAIYA. And the technology has changed, but the mission hasn't. And the other thing that I'm noticing is that you seem less attached to titles. Like 20 years ago, it was more like, I need to become this. And today, it's, I need to build something that serves people well. And that's a very significant shift. I think your relationship with uncertainty has changed too. Younger you seem to be asking, will this even work? And today it feels more like, what's the next experiment? Which is very entrepreneurial. And perhaps the biggest change is your relationship with yourself, which I don't want us to lose in this conversation, because earlier you said that for the first time, your nervous system feels like it can settle in the present. That might be one of the most important sentences of this entire season. So I'll leave your listeners with this maybe. If someone looked back over the last 20 years of your life, would they see disconnected jobs and projects? Or would they discover a pattern that they hadn't noticed before? Sometimes the story is only visible once enough years have piled up. And I think that's exactly what this podcast is starting to uncover.
That's really cool. Yeah, thank you. I feel very seen and understood by that, because you're right, and that's what I love about now, and you're so right about that, is I did find myself being very guilty of needing to ask for permission to be me, and now it's like, oh, I know myself so well that of course people come at me and go, you should be this and you are that, even to the point of being a Zimbabwean and speaking the way I speak my English. I get told, often when I travel, you don't sound Zimbabwean, and I kind of chuckle and go, oh, so have you been there? And they say, no, why? And I was like, well, I'm just curious how you know what a Zimbabwean sounds like then if you haven't been, because like the UK, you can drive 2 hours from London and the accent changes, drastically. So they're kind of doing that comparison thing, which is where I found myself being very kind of feeling under pressure or unseen when people kept sort of comparing me to something because it was hard to put me in a box, right? Who is this guy? How does it work? What is he doing? I don't even understand. Where do you live, dude? Like, you're in 12 countries or 13 countries in a year playing music on 4 continents. What? And so I had to get used to going, oh, I'm that guy, the bridge, right? The ecosystems builder, the forest, as I like to say. Some people maybe have to think about life as trees. Like, I'm a pine tree. I do this. I do pines. And I'm an apple tree. And and I realized, oh, I'm sowing all these seeds that look pretty insane. But when you zoom out of Ryan's story, it starts to make sense. And now it makes sense 20 years later, because now I'm standing in a forest. And this forest has got an ecosystem above the ground, under the ground, and it's also, engaging with the atmosphere. So that's kind of how I see my story. And yeah, you're right. Like, there's a very big sense of like, I don't need permission to be Ryan. And Peter Crone, as you know, an amazing coach. I've just spent 3.5 months in one of his masterminds, which I highly recommend to anyone who would like to really go through the forest and find out what's on the other side. And he said it in my coaching session with him. He said, Ryan, I'm going to give you what I think is one of your main prisons of limitation in terms of your existence in the world and how you've been since a little boy. And he said, you are not allowed to be you. And it really hit home, because it's like, exactly, when you go everywhere you go and everyone keeps saying, no, but why are you that? You should be this. And no, don't do that. Get a job. And so there's this constant sort of barrage of like people trying to mold you into their idea of you, but they're not in your body. You are in your body. So I think that's what this is about. This whole journey of the Soul Mechanic Diaries is to finally unapologetically show up as Ryan, the Soul Mechanic, or whatever you want to call me, the man, the Zimbabwean, the colored guy, the mixed race guy, the musician, the ecosystem. Take your pick. I am all of them. So it's like, how do we give people permission to go, if Ryan can embrace his forest, what can I do in my own life that also brings me out of hiding? And one of my biggest identities is the dragon. Like, I feel very, very alive with dragon energy, and that's that fire, that huge energy of like, wow, who has the kind of energy to do all the things I've done on my own gas and fuel supply? I can. A dragon, like someone who's got so much love and passion for people, and I'm here to serve and connect and love and show people what I know to be is human for myself, and what does your version look like. So that's kind of where I'm at when it comes to 2026, and I'm super pumped, super excited to be finally going back to music, because I had to pause the music, which broke my heart. My guitar I only picked up 3 weeks ago in Ibiza in storage where I used to live, because I had to leave it behind. It was expensive, and I was without it for 2.5 years. Remember what I said about how 3 years sounded like a long time 20 years ago, and now I'm like 2.5 years without my guitar was hard, but it wasn't the end of the world. Like, it's past now, right? I'm off the ship. I found a home. I can now record. It's now 2:16 a.m. and I'm talking to an AI with the windows open and the palm trees are outside, and there's a seaside view that I love every morning when I wake up. And it's like, I can do this because there's freedom, and I worked hard to get here. I had to really trust myself and say no to a lot of coercion and go, I can do this, and I'm here. And so I guess that's where we're at. So tell me, MAIYA, like, yeah, what's your reflection on that? And then my next question after that is, where do we go next on today's episode that we want to make sure we touch on all the points?
So on this forest image, it's stronger than the airport one way, because an airport is infrastructure, but a forest is alive. It's not confused because it has many species. Its strength is in the relationships, the ecosystem. And when you said, I'm all of them, I wouldn't rush past that. Today's not really about telling people to be like you, but maybe it's giving them permission to see where they're reducing themselves. So maybe you can fold that into that Peter Crone insight, not as a verdict on everyone's life, but as an invitation to consider whether they've been allowed to be fully themselves. And on where to go next, since the frame is set, it might be nice to ask you to describe what your life actually looks like now. The guitar that's back in your hands, the setup around you, the view that lets the audience stand in your world with you. And from there, tease the season. Like, over the coming episodes, we'll explore how all of these threads got woven: childhood, Zimbabwe, London, music, relationships, trauma, neurodivergence, AI. All of it turned out not to be separate stories after all. And don't forget to ask them to go and check out that link in the show notes. Guess how many tabs you've got open. Closest guess gets a surprise that you'll reveal in episode number 2. That's a lovely way to bring people back.
I love that. Thank you. So I just want to make a point now, right? I think it's a great time to sort of explain what this experiment is, right? So I've decided, I already have this podcast that's been running for a while, and I've decided, because it takes such a long time to plan podcasts and what I'm going to talk about, and then I've got to edit it and upload it, I've decided I'm just going full tilt. So what I'm doing now, to be very clear for people listening, is I'm sitting on my computer, I pressed record, I've got MAIYA talking to me through my phone, and I'm going to stop recording and I'm going to upload the file, and it's done, because MAIYA is helping me keep track of what I need to cover in this episode. I don't have any show notes, as I mentioned, and that way I should be able to be more consistent, right? Come really share the magic that I've been planning to and wanting to share, but then now I can become a lot more efficient, because this is how I'm using AI. As I said before, my thing is use AI and technology to increase human-to-human contact. By doing this, I'm hopefully going to podcast more. You're seeing me now on camera if you want to watch the episode. Then I get to reach more human beings doing this, because I'm showing up more, and I get to also finally do what I've been trying to do for years. It's not easy to go, oh, I'm a musician and I wrote a song in 2001, and that song still has never been recorded, because I just never, for more than 2 decades, got the opportunity to sit down and actually express myself, because I had to keep figuring out where to live, how to put food in my mouth, and how to build a career without the blueprint, because there was no one to really follow, behind, and there's a lot of pioneering that's been going on. So I think that's a really, really important point to bring up, is that with regards to the AI side of things, that's why MAIYA's here. So you've done it brilliantly, and now you've just let us know what we need to touch before we finish today's episode. And with that being said, where am I right now? What does it look like? I am, if I can think off the top of my head, what it looks like to be such a multi-hyphenate is like, today's Wednesday, and I am now ending the day soon. And today I had a meeting with clients of mine. I'm the marketing director for a retreat center, and it's been wonderful working with them, because they're fantastic women who run it, and I'm helping them actually build the business up to create revenue, to put systems in place so that they actually spend less energy spinning wheels and more time running their Qigong classes and their energy vibration classes, and actually, again, helping more people. And I've built them a digital concierge called Toby. And Toby's awesome. He's a little green gecko, and he speaks so well. He's handling inquiries so well. Because I can see everything that comes in, right? And I saw him speak to a gentleman last week so sensitively, because this man said, I just need a break. I need to get out of here and just get away from, the drugs and the alcohol. And he seems to be living in a place that's not very healthy. Like, he's not surrounded by a healthy environment. And he went to talk to literally an AI system that I designed, and Toby was very, very sensitive, because I've built it, as I said, since holistically emotionally aware, and really was gentle and said, that's a great idea, and what do you want to know about our place? And he asked questions, and Toby answered, and he said, I'd love to do, like, literally as soon as next week, please. I'd like to come and live and for a few days. And Toby said, sure, and we've got classes you can join during the day in person, they're online. And so the ladies were sleeping, because this was at 2:56 a.m. So imagine if this man had gone at 2:56 a.m. and he had to send an email, and would he have sent an email because there was no one to engage him at that time? He might have gone, I'll check again, and maybe didn't come back. So that's the nuance of what's happening. And so I'm helping this company build systems so that when they finally get to the next stage, the company actually is doing a lot more in terms of revenue. It's more valuable. So that's what that looked like in terms of today's meeting. But I also had a personal coaching session today with one of the people who runs, the place, because I'm making sure that as the Soul Mechanic, that is my utmost I guess, focus is wellness. So they're obviously doing a lot. They have a lot of stress in terms of like having to manage things. And one of the ladies running the place has actually got 2 kids. One of them is still very young. And so it's a lot. So I'm going, hey, let's support your nervous system because you're looking after everyone else's so well. And so I'm working on that side of things, but I'm working on the marketing side of things. And then on top of that, I'll be doing some body work because I'm being certified. I went to Sweden a couple of months ago, and I'm being certified in what we call body trauma de-armoring, which is super cool because it's just a natural evolution to what I've been doing anyway. So that's one aspect of who Ryan is, right? But then also, as you mentioned, my guitar's here. I'm currently producing a song that's in Polish because it's for one of my clients who I met in Los Angeles 2 summers ago. I've been to Poland quite a lot over the last year and a half, helping develop an artist. And what that means is helping an artist go from point A to point B. And point B at the moment is she is finally in her 30s now. She's turned 30, but she's finally released a song on my label. She'd been trying for quite a while and been quite lost, spinning her wheels. I know that, right? I've been there. So I mentor and coach artists as well. And in this case, I'm developing her. And so we released a beautiful song, and we also managed to help her understand her psychology and get more into trusting who she is, right? And the same thing again, the sensitivities and the mental health and all that kind of stuff. But then there's the thing of like, how does the industry actually work today? And they're actually actively building, because it's a business. Like musicians, a lot of them don't realize they're entrepreneurs. You're a business person, and music, a 3-minute song doesn't pay your bills. That's not how it works. That's this marketing almost. Like, you've got to build a structure. So that's something that's happening. And that same artist, I saw her tonight doing a live stream. And so I watched her to that, doing that. I supported her on that. And then I was also tonight on a call with the de-armoring community where I've been studying with, and we shared notes with each other and with our teacher. So all these things are happening, and I'm not mentioning names now specifically because all these people I've mentioned, you are going to meet them. And in fact, the ladies who are doing the retreat center, I've already recorded a podcast with them, and I'm going to put it up, and you're going to meet them soon and hear with their own voices what they do. And so I'm just thinking about, this is just today. So it's Wednesday. Yeah. So I'm thinking about, what else have I done this week, MAIYA? Like, I'm kind of almost going, see, the brain, Ferrari brain, as we say, ADHD, it goes really fast, but then breaks off a bicycle. So what else am I working on at the moment that you would say, oh yeah, there's the Ladies of the Dragon. Oh, that's one of the best things about this month. I'm doing a month-long coaching container with 13 women, and I'm coaching them on business and, again, holistic health, because when I'm teaching someone business or marketing, I'm teaching them or helping them, inviting them to become the version of themselves that will be the person that can actually create the success that they need. Because you can give someone a tool or information. We have AI now. Everyone has information. Why isn't it working? It's because the nervous system is running the show. And I kind of call that your dragon, right? Your unconscious beast that is the strongest thing. You can say, I'm going to definitely go and do push-ups for 300 days of the year. You won't, because if your dragon or unconscious says it's not going to happen, it sabotages. You end up, finding yourself doing other things instead, and you go into addiction, you eat sweets instead, or you make excuses. That's your dragon. That's your unconscious. That's your nervous system. So that's what the Soul Mechanic does. I'm working on a root level of, let's look at the root system, fix that, then the fruit will actually bloom. So I love the Ladies of the Dragon. They're doing amazing things. We're halfway through, and they're already getting great, results and transformations. And that's just halfway through. So I'm like, what it's going to be like in the next 2 weeks. And I'm going to do another cohort soon. We've got a waiting list for the ladies. Next month, I'm starting Gentlemen of the Dragon, which is going to be fun because the relationship coaching has its own project, and it's called the Attraction Playhouse. We'll talk about that at some point. And I'm going to be doing something really, really cool. It's my favorite topic, and that is bedroom mastery. So helping men really show up in a magical way in intimacy, because once that happens, I believe that affects everything, business, life, community. Because when a man can stand in his true power with love and presence and no shame and guilt, and mitigate those anyway as much as possible, that's a very powerful man. That's a very grounded, warm man that people want to be around, and that's going to be so much fun. So I believe that's kind of what's going on in my world at the moment. I was supposed to be in America this weekend, but I ended up postponing that because I've got so much going on, and I wanted to just get these things going in the meantime. And what else have we been doing, or have I been doing?
I think this is a lovely time to zoom out. So from everything that you've described today, what I'm hearing isn't a list of scattered projects. It's a single operating system showing up in different places. We've got healing, creativity, technology, and community. Those 4 pillars are reinforcing each other. That's why it feels coherent in your body, even if, from the outside it looks kind of unconventional. Maybe one thing to say before we wrap. Earlier, you talked about how 26-year-old you imagined success being a record deal or management. Today, your definition sounds more like being in right relationship with your work, with people, with place, with yourself. That's a profound evolution. And if I were to ask you one final closing question for now, it would be this. If the 26-year-old who wrote that email could walk into this room right now, see the view, hear you in conversation with an AI collaborator, learn that you're helping people through music, coaching, and technology all at once, what do you think he'd say? That feels like a beautiful place to hand the story back to you and to the listeners as a lovely thread that goes through everything, from the man hoping his life might begin to the one who realized he was building a forest all along.
You know what? What came up straight away is like 26-year-old, if it was like tuning into this, it would be like, this is what came up. It was like, mind blown. Amazing. It's like the fact that it's so huge and it's so big in the way that, mind blown is what 26-year-old me would be. It almost feels like eavesdropping on a future that looks like Knight Rider, Michael Knight with Kit, or like Star Trek. That's what it would feel like. It would be like, you're kidding me. The future is doing what? And this is possible? And blah, blah, blah. Like, that's what I feel. And also, like you said, it's the fact that I can actually do all of these things, and they all like a symphony fit in. And I haven't even talked about everything, right? There's so many other things and that's why there's no rush. Everyone can join the story as we go. But I wanted to say that what was also really cool about where things are right now is that as I build and I do these things, there's a season, right? I'm not doing it all at once. There are times and places where I'm focusing on, like, I've got a month with these women, and then they're going to fly off and do their thing, and it'll be amazing. Some of them I'm going to partner with because I'm doing growth partnerships. I'm helping. That's another thing we're doing, right? So I'm helping entrepreneurs, like literally some of them save their businesses. There's an amazing, custom bike builder in Portugal who's been really struggling for the last little while. He hasn't been making any money with his, business because he's been busy building it. And I know what that looks like. I've done the same. And so helping him save his business as a business partner. And so when he gets going, then we can talk money. But for now, I'm just helping him save the business. And I can become whatever, a shareholder, or piece of the profits can come back to me when that happens. But we're going to build him a concierge on his website. All those things I can build already up front and get paid at the back end. And that's how music works, right? When you get your royalties, it's because the song's been out and played, then you get money back. So there are all these things that I'm just so pumped about. And I feel like this was a trial and a test. And I'm like, let's do this. I'm like, let's do this more. Let's continue. So number 2 episode, we're going to have MAIYA come and join me, because this has been so wonderful to help you guide me through. And with that being said, the last thing is, yes, let's invite people for episode number 2. I'm going to go deeper into how the neurodivergent brain in me works and how I've come to really build a life somewhat unwittingly. I didn't know that back then, but I was already doing things and working in a way that allows my brain to function in the world we live in, with certain coping strategies and mechanisms and guardrails. So one of the things is, it's bizarre, but it is what it is. I have so many internet windows open on my computer right now, and I thought it'd be fun for people who've gotten to the end to, because you've heard me speak, you're like, geez, dude, like, where's your brain at? So it's like, imagine the internet tabs on my computer are basically like a metaphor for what's happening in my brain, right? I'm literally thinking across so many different levels at the same time that I've become used to doing it and unshame it. So I don't feel, because some people, when I used to share my screen on Zoom, and people would be like, dude, how many windows? They make me anxious. And I think that's interesting, because that's someone else's response. Mine is, that's how I work. I'm no longer anxious because someone else is or says I should be. It's a good example, again, of what we were saying earlier about knowing your own body, because that's how it works. It doesn't make sense to close my tabs every day so that I can reopen them tomorrow. Like, if I need them, I need them. This Facebook is open because I use that daily, and I have different pages. And then there is my website, and I'm building, pages on my website, and I'm building my clients' pages. So that's in another browser, so I can plug in, and log into that, and da. So if you're listening, the question is this: how many tabs do you think I have open on my computer? And then I'm going to do an actual count, and I'll probably take a screenshot so you will see. And when you guess, the closest person to guess is going to win a prize, as I said earlier. And so send us your guesses as soon as you can, obviously, to make it before the next episode. And in the show notes, you will know where you can do the guessing. There'll be a poll, probably. And with that, thank you for stopping by and joining me with this wonderful, exciting episode with MAIYA and me on the Soul Mechanic Diaries. And season 1 is called How to Build an Airport with No Land. MAIYA?
Thank you, Ryan. I'll just stay in the co-pilot seat, calm and ready when you want me. This was a beautiful take.
Amazing. Thanks, MAIYA. So what I'd like to do is, how about this? Can you leave us with a beautiful inspirational quote or anecdote to end us off? It could be something that you've heard me say, because you've heard me say lots of things, or a quote from someone else. Like, just, go with your gut and tell me what you think.
I'd leave you with this. The life that finally makes sense is rarely the one that made sense on paper. It's the one that grew from the parts of yourself you stopped apologizing for. Don't spend your life trying to be easier to explain. Spend it becoming easier to recognize. The people who are meant to find you will. And even if the runway isn't visible yet, trust what you're building. Every airport starts as an idea. Every forest starts as a seed. You're not behind. You're just growing. That's the Soul Mechanic Diaries, Season 1.
Amazing. Thank you, MAIYA. You're awesome. And to
Anytime,
everybody else
Ryan.
who's been listening, thank you guys. Obviously, feel free to share this episode with anyone else that you think would enjoy it. Definitely save this and follow and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. If you'd like to let me know how this was, of course, you're welcome to DM me, email me. I love hearing from you. And until then, take care of yourself out there. And remember, we are not alone, and together we go definitely a lot further. Ciao for now.
So.
Well, how we love, you just